You can see how we have a high here, right? That high was already an SMT high off this. That has offered you a whole potential trade right here. This is a whole potential trade idea based on this one SMT right here. Then we create further divergence. This is creating higher time frame divergence. So you can see that was an hourly SMT to then drive us back down into here, right? What did that do? That put in an SMT off this low right here. Then what does that SMT do? That SMT is used to drive us back to raid this old high up here, right? Then what do? I'm just moving SMT to SMT. Okay, now we have an SMT off this old high because ES has failed to take this high and NQ's taken it. What does that do? That offers us a move back down into this gap, into this inefficiency, right? Then I'm looking again. Do we have SMT's bottom side? Yes, we do. Okay, so off this low to these lows, we have another SMT. We've created a 15-minute SMT inside of a 15-minute gap. This is also an hourly SMT. So this is an hourly SMT inside of an hourly inefficiency. If I scaled up, you would see that is an hourly inefficiency. So that is going bottom side SMT to then be able to run this top side SMT. We can also see ES is frequently, every single time, ES is the one that is failing. That is showing me ES is the weaker pair. So I can expect NQ to be the one that raids these highs over here. That is very prominent to me. I'm going to be looking to determine which one is the weaker versus stronger pair. So yeah, you're a good Samir. So the stronger pair in this case, in bullish strength, is NQ. NQ is running out all this liquidity to trade up into this inefficiency over here, right? Off this high. This is our final raid. We have one high, two high, three highs. That is a 3 drive on a higher time frame. Look over here, right? Where does ES trade to? This inefficiency. So I'm looking at ES2. I'm saying, okay, is this a valid spot for ES to then reverse? Yes, we are inside of a 15-minute inefficiency. Is there a volume imbalance after that? No volume imbalance, but we are still inside of a 15-minute inefficiency. There would be a 5-minute inefficiency there. We are off an accumulate, manipulate, distribute, right? Whereas NQ has now ran out our prominent buy side liquidity. What is this? This is a new day. So this is a daily SMT off the high, right? From that, this is confirming that this is going to be a protected high. Also, the fact that it was NQ that rated all the liquidity gives me even more confidence, right? Then we get displacement away from. How do I then get on side with this? So if I wasn't able to get on side inside here, look how we have these inefficiencies in here. Very, very clear target. This is a new week opening gap. That is a money back guarantee draw if you are shorting in here. You can see, what do? We get into the inefficiency on both, right? Do we put in any prominent SMT? Yes, to an extent. We put in an SMT of this 1645 low, right? What does that do? That allows us to drive back up into, look at this swing, where is our inefficiency? This 15-minute gap right here. So it drives us up into this 15-minute gap. What is this 15-minute gap? It is a premium array. Why is it a premium array? Draw up premium discount. Also, right? If we have now flipped and we are looking to fulfill this very clean market maker sell model, what is this? This is going to be our 15-minute low risk. So yes, up in here, we would have offered a 1-minute low risk that I was probably getting on side with, right? As you can see, look at the time. Like if I zoom in here, this is a very good example. I'll go all the way through this and this will be crazy. So drop OTE, back straight to OTE, straight to the only inefficiency in this range that is valid. This is a discount array, serves no purpose. And the reason it needed to come back up into here is because we rebalanced some of this inefficiency. So from this, I'm going to be looking, okay, if this is our low risk, let's look for SMTs off the low risk. What do? Off this high, we put in a 15-minute SMT inside of a 15-minute unmitigated gap, right? Very, very clean. Even though ES has rated this low all the way down here, What is this low on NQ? It is still low resistance liquidity. So this answers the question before about, okay, if one has already taken my terminus, how do I know that the other might still or might not? Is it low resistance liquidity? Yes. Where is it low resistance into? An unmitigated gap. Very, very clear draw. Massive unmitigated gap that will need to be rebalanced. What else do we have to the left? More low resistance liquidity and a data wick. This is 830 data wick. Very prominent draw. Also, all LR all the way through here. So very, very clean. Then if I zoom in, right, so I'm going to go replay just to make it cleaner. Then if I zoom in, so we're diverged off the low, however, we are also diverged off the high. There is no need for us to run this high. We already rated it 3 times and we have the prominent SMT off it, right? If this is our low risk, we then get displacement and inversion away from, you could take that. As I keep scaling down, right, I'm going to be able to improve my precision. So you know how I was saying this is a low risk on a 15-minute time frame? This right here is also a 1-minute market maker model or a 5-minute market maker model. So if I zoom down even further, pretty sure I actually remember taking this trade. So one thing about this sequence right here, yes, it is not that clean in terms of like V shape, right? However, we've had a complete up close candle that is efficient in buy side delivery. And then we have a down close candle that is efficient in sell side delivery. So this whole range right here is efficient in price delivery. There is no need for us to come back to this high. This is all efficient price delivery. Through here, we've accumulated. We then come to our open, right? 7 o'clock opens. What do? We manipulate. 7 o'clock manipulates. Do we put in a prominent SMT? Look over to the left. 631. So no prominent SMT. However, it is inside of a completely efficient price delivery run. And we have our SMT off this. Okay, so out of this whole range, what do we do here? We open at 7 o'clock. What do? We manipulate, accumulate, manipulate. In that manipulation, we created a gap. That gap, look at the time, 7 o'clock, that is our first presented fair value gap. See how we raid that, we inverse it. Look how we come back to it. We come back to it. Why do we come back to it? Because out of this range, these are all discount arrays. They are inefficient, however, they are discount arrays. Where is the primary premium inefficiency? Drop 0.5 or OTE. Again, same sort of low risk. You see 0.62, perfectly respected. We have this inefficiency right here. That is the start of our inefficiency. However, you can get on side with our first presented. Another thing to note, what is this inefficiency? This inefficiency is our first presented following a sweep of liquidity. And it's also what I would consider to be our first presented EVO. So our 7 o'clock first presented EVO. You can see how by stacking these, this is giving me a area of essentially high resistance, right? So we are likely to not trade through this. Obviously, you also have other things that I'm stacking, changes state of delivery. Look how there is a cluster. There's a cluster of PD arrays that align in my favor. What else do we have? To our change in state, we can go standard deviations. Okay, I'm going to be looking. We didn't tap 2 to 2.5. We went to 1. We went to this inefficiency in here, and then we had to draw more liquidity. So we draw more liquidity. What do? We reject off this PD array. We create a rejection block. So draw up quadrants of this rejection block. I want to see how we respect the quadrants. Bang, upper quadrant. This is why I like having quadrants. Yes, it closed over 0.5, clean respect of the upper quadrant. We then displace away from, we get an inversion of this gap here. What is this? So look at time. It is not a 30-minute first presented. However, it was accumulate, manipulate, right? No gaps here. This is our manipulation gap. When we inverse the manipulation gap, you know that we are at least going to run this low resistance liquidity right here, and you could go break even. So even if you had a fill here, you put a break even for the end of this LR right here, being these relative equal lows, you're hitting all the way, right? You didn't get break even and you hit full TP. I think what I eventually took through here was either this displacement candle, or if you wait for the next hour, right? Fuck, this cat's just at my door meowing, bro. 8 o'clock, right? Open. Is this going to be our high of hour? No, right? This is actually what I took. So knowing that if 8 o'clock opens, right, and we put in a little nothing burger high right here, that is not going to be our high of hour. So if this is my 8 o'clock high, right, I'm going to mark out this 8 o'clock high. If I don't believe that's going to be high of hour, what do I need to see? I need to see some form of manipulation or SMT off this high. So if I drop ESs, see how I put in 3 equal highs? That's even more so showing you this is not going to be high of hour. So what do? We need to draw more liquidity. What is this gap here? This gap is our 8 o'clock first presented fair value gap, right? See how it got inversed? That is simply it mohawking. Why did it mohawk? Because this is our first presented order block. So first presenteds are fractal, right? It applies for every PD array. GS gaps, bro, that guy's a retard. Sorry. But
it's so true though.
I don't like that guy. But so you see, we respect this order block and we put in a 5-minute SMT. That GS brother is not ever giving you narrative and explanations this deep. You see, we go up. What do? We put in a 5-minute SMT. What else do? We put in a 15-minute SMT off these two highs right here. So if this was 14, when we next roll over on that 15-minute candle, see how we sweep that high? That is a 15-minute and a 5-minute inside of a 5-minute up here. So I'll go here. Should see there should be a 5-minute. Yo. So what are we inside? A 5-minute. What does ES do? Where are we? No. I gotta select bar.
Wait, quick. I was just wondering, how often do these SMTs get presented? Is it like every time?
Every time, bro. Every time that there's a move. So look here. You see here. See how we traded up into that on ES? We rated that high, and we also rated this high with no top wick. So that's putting in an SMT all the way up to that
need to
high.
Look for like individual candles highs.
Hey?
No, it's only highs with the fair value gap there, right?
Yeah, inside of a gap. And yeah, Bruno's right with that. He just rebranded that shit. And so look on the 1 minute time frame, right? What did I take here is what I took was respect of this first presented order block. Then we get 15-minute SMT. What do we get off the 15-minute SMT? So also this is a rejection block. We have a 5-minute SMT off this high. This opened inside of, this is a valid rejection block. So if I get rid of this, valid rejection block we're rejecting out of, you can see we get this gap right here. So if this is our first presented, this whole gap is our first presented, what is this to me? This is our first presented Evo. So the fact that we inverse this in one candle, this one candle drakes straight through it, we get displacement candle and inversion. That is a very good sign. So what I did is I entered right away. I think I pyramided as we traded up into here. I'm pyramiding. I'm adding more cons. I put my stop for 1 tick above the first presented order block high, knowing that this should be a protected high, and even that should be. However, I'm going to afford it the ability to potentially run this high without running this high, because if we run this, it invalidates the 15-minute SMT, right? So from that, you can get an entry there. And then what have I got to target? I have a free break even at this unmitigated gap right here, because premium discount, this is our discount array. However, what I ended up doing is understanding that this is a market maker sell model. Look at these relative equal lows right here. Right? This cat is so annoying. And then if you let that play out, it should just straight to TP. Yeah, so this is how I got the Drake candle straight on side. And then you like look
So
how
you
clean
don't
of a
mind
run you get.
entering,
Hey?
you don't mind entering like among the chop like at all, right? Because you know like it's
Well, I know that this is a protected high, right? And even though this is
like,
chop,
yeah, you can't lose anything.
yeah, exactly. We gapped out of the chop here to put in a high. So even though we didn't technically manipulate this high on ES, on NQ, we did manipulate it on ES. So that is still a manipulation. The fact that we traded up into here, inside this rejection block, generating enough liquidity for us to then roll over lower. But yeah, I'm okay to enter inside the chop only because I got exactly what I wanted to see. We had correlating SMT, so we had a 5-minute SMT, and then we got a 15-minute SMT off that high, being a 15-minute open, high, low close, right? So then what do we get off here? Time-based model. So this is how I knew that it would spool at exactly that time. Look at the macro, 825. 825 displaces out of the range instantly. You know that this next 5 minutes is going to continue to spool in your direction. It is a macro. We're going to seek out liquidity, right? Then what do? We keep trading lower. We open off 830. 830 just continued that dump lower. That's why I don't mind being positioned on side prior to these key times, right? So it would be the same sort of concept as 930. This has offered you nothing following 830 to get on side with the cleanest run of the day, which is to fulfill this model. Once this model's done, we don't necessarily have to do anything. Like, that is going to be your best move of the day. You can just hop off after that, which you wouldn't have even been able to catch if you weren't aware of the fact that 825 is a prominent time that you can be on side prior to. And the thing with that is the fact that that 5 minutes, knowing that that 5 minutes would spool, means I can get a break even. As soon as we get this displacement, I go break even.
Yeah.
Regardless of what 830 does, I make money, or I'm gonna get break even.